Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Watson. I'm a third-year theologian with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles studying here at St. John's Seminary. And I want to take a moment to thank you for joining me today as we reflect on this gospel passage and on the life of a great saint in our church, St. Charles Borromeo, the patron saint of seminarians and of all who teach in catechetical ministry. So let's begin with today's gospel. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlooker should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build, but did not have the resources to finish." Or what king, marching into battle, would not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, every one of you who does not renounce all of his possessions cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord. This is a very difficult gospel passage for some of us to hear, for myself included. It's not very often that we hear in the gospel the word hate, especially as something that we should be doing. But we have to remember that context is everything, right? Jesus is not simply saying, you indiscriminately have to hate your mother, your father, your brother, your sister. That's what we're called to do. No, what he is saying is that we need to put him first. We need to put God first. We need to be willing to pick up our cross and follow God. Now that phrase, pick up your cross, is very interesting in this passage because we have to remember this is before the crucifixion. We look on the cross through the lens of the resurrection. We understand the crucifixion in light of Christ rising from the dead. But for those who are listening to this passage, they didn't have that opportunity. They didn't have that understanding that we have. For them, the cross meant, and for ancient Jews, the cross meant the ultimate curse. It was to be abandoned and rejected by God, to be crucified, to be nailed and hung on the tree. And so what Jesus is calling them to do is truly, truly radical. He is saying that they have to be willing to go to the very extreme for love of him, because that's what he did for us, and that's why we follow him. St. John Paul II, in a homily that he gave on this passage, says that carrying the cross, following Jesus, means being prepared to make any sacrifice for love of him. It means not putting anything or anyone before him, not even those you love the most, not even your own life. In reflecting upon the words of today's gospel, on the life of St. Charles Borromeo, and on these words I just read from St. John Paul II, there was a word that kept coming to my mind. And it was the word that St. Charles Borromeo, as Bishop of Milan, chose to be his episcopal motto. That's the phrase that a bishop chooses that's kind of their guiding light, if you will. And he chose a one-word phrase, and that was humilitatis, humility. Really, that's what Jesus is calling us to. That's what Jesus is talking about in today's gospel. Now, humility is not a false lowering of oneself, of hiding or rejecting the gifts that God has given us because we don't want to seem proud. We don't want to seem as if we're putting ourselves forward. True humility is the recognition and the gratefulness for the gifts and the talents that God has given us, recognizing that we only have them because of him. and that they are not to be used for self-aggrandizement. They're not to be used to make ourselves seem wonderful, but rather they are to be used to serve God and his church. Every one of us has a vocation. Every one of us is called, and every one of us has the gifts given to us by God to fulfill that vocation. For some of us, it might be married life. It might be single life in service to our brothers and sisters or to the church. It might be to the religious life as a brother or a nun in a religious community. And for some of us, it might be to the priesthood. But we all have a vocation. And I think if we take a moment to reflect on humility, if we take a moment today, tomorrow, sometime this week, to pause, to spend a few minutes in silence and listen to God and ask him, what are these gifts that you have given me? What are these talents that you have given me that I can use to serve you, to serve your church? And to look and try to understand vocation through that lens, to understand that we are absolutely unworthy. As a seminarian, and as I pray as a future priest, I know that I will never truly be worthy to present the sacrifice of the Mass, to offer Jesus back to God and to the people. If I were to sit in that thought alone, though, if I were to dwell in that kind of false sense of humility, not recognizing the talents and gifts that God has given me, or that call that he has put in my heart, then I really wouldn't be following his will. Then I wouldn't be picking up my cross and following him. Because we know in every vocation there's sacrifice to be made. In married life, in single life, in religious life, in the priesthood, there is sacrifice. It does mean picking up the cross. But we follow Jesus. Pope Benedict explained that it is not by chance that Jesus speaks of the cross. However, he straightaway explains, after me. Pope Benedict says these are important words. We are not able to carry our cross. He walks ahead of us, showing us the way with the light of his example and the power of his love. So my brothers and sisters, again, I want to encourage you to reflect on this gospel passage, to reflect on humility, on calculating those costs, on figuring out what are those gifts and talents God has given me, and how you can use them to better serve his church. Again, take a few moments in silence and in conversation with God to reflect on that. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and know that you are in my prayers, and I ask for your prayers as well. God bless you.